Hey everybody, welcome to the videos from breaking down the Super Bowl showdown slate for this weekend, the Bengals versus the Rams in Super Bowl 56. We have $6 million guaranteed and $1 million to first over on DraftKings this weekend, with nearly 500,000 people competing in this contest. So it's going to be an exciting one, a lot to look forward to, fun players from both sides here, so definitely looking forward to breaking down this slate. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. Follow me over on social media if you want. If you want to sign up over on PrizePicks, you can get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100 when you use code CPEN, link down below, or head over to PrizePicks.com. I'd tell you about the Patreon, but the season is over here. But I do have NASCAR in full swing if you do want to check that out. And we do have a Millie Maker for the Daytona 500 next Sunday, so there's a potential for a lot of money to be made here. I'll also be on the Osmo streams or doing content for them. So lots to look forward to when it comes to NASCAR. A lot of extra content over on the Patreon as well. But I think that'll be pretty much it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position. Both these guys are nearly the same play for me. Both are fine flex plays as far as the captain spot goes. It's not a question of do you want to play Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow. Yes, you want to play both of these guys. Now, it's going to be a little bit hard to fit both in the same lineup depending on where you go with your captain. But the reason I prefer them in the flex spot is while, yes, they can use their legs a little bit, these guys are not going to get the job done solely on their legs. They're going to need some help from pass catching options. And I think it's way more likely we see a skill position player, more likely a wide receiver than anything. But it's possible a running back or a tight end could also get in there unless a kicker or defense goes crazy. But I'm in love with Cooper Kupp in the captain spot on this slate. It's very expensive, but if I have Kupp in the captain spot, I want his quarterback with him, which is Matthew Stafford. Or if I have Jamar Chase in the captain spot, I want Joe Burrow with him. So it really just depends on what your roster construction looks like if you can't fit both in. Now, if it's a heads up, I personally prefer Matthew Stafford. It's slight. He is playing at home. I realize it says on the sheet that Cincinnati is the home team, which they technically are for the Super Bowl, but they are playing in the LA Stadium for the Super Bowl here. They have the higher implied team total currently at 26.25, as this is a 4-point spread game. And Stafford, fantasy points wise, has been very solid this season, averaging nearly 300 passing yards per game, 2.5 passing touchdowns, has excellent wide receivers to get the ball to. Best one of the year in Cooper Kupp. Odell Beckham Jr. has been a great ad for them, and Van Jefferson's not too bad either. You also have Skarnek there. They are going to be without Tyler Higbee, but I don't think it's going to be a huge deal for the Rams offense, and you have some pretty good running backs out of the backfield as well. And this matchup for the Rams is a little bit better than it is for Joe Burrow versus the Rams defense. Cincinnati is currently 24th DVA versus the pass, and a bottom half team when it comes to fantasy points allowed per game in the quarterback position. So I like Matthew Stafford just a little bit more than Burrow, but it is quite close. Burrow will be lower owned, so if you're looking for the leverage play, going Jamar Chase and Burrow in your lineups over Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford is definitely a decent way to do that because they both have, I would say, very similar upside. One's just going to be lower owned than the other. And just heading over to our lineup, don't just copy and paste this. I'm building it on the fly to see what fits as we talk through it, but I already mentioned the quarterback, so I like both, obviously, and if I could fit both in, that would be great, but I'm probably going to end up putting Cooper Kupp in the captain spot here, which is definitely going to limit my capabilities of where I can fit guys in the flex spot. So for right now, we're just going to roll with one quarterback. It's going to be Matthew Stafford, and we'll move on to running backs. And moving over to the running backs, we will start with the Bengals here first, which is basically just Joe Mixon. Yes, Samaje Perine will get some very limited touches, but it's the Super Bowl. Joe Mixon is getting the bulk of the work here, and he's been great this year for fantasy purposes. The problem is he's nearly $10,000, and I do prefer the Bengals passing attack here in this game. The Rams run defense has been pretty solid this season. Now Mixon will be involved in the passing game a little bit, which will boost his floor on a PPR site like DraftKings. It's just, if I'm assuming the Bengals are trailing, they are 4-point dogs. It's not like they're going to get blown out or anything, at least according to Vegas. But it would just make sense for me to like the passing attack more, especially if I'm stacking up a lot of Rams in my lineups. I'm going to want to run that back with some guys like Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Uzama, assuming he plays, and the likes of those guys, instead of using a nearly $10,000 Joe Mixon. Again, the volume was great from him, as using the passing game a little bit, not like he's an Alvin Kamara kind of guy, but does get a few targets per game and close to a 10% target share in the season. Matchup a little bit rough versus the Rams. His ownership, compared to some other guys up top, will be a little bit low, so I don't mind going with Joe Mixon. It's just I feel like there's some better point per dollar options on this slate. And Samaje Perine, he's really just a throw in the dart. Have to pretty much hope he scores at $2,400. As for the Rams, they're a little bit more crowded because we have a three-man group here of Cam Akers at $6,400, so I personally think is way too cheap. Sonny Michel at $5,000, and Henderson here at $1,600, who is going to be good to go for this game. So we have all the running backs back and healthy for LA, which is not something we've been able to say pretty much all season long. So it is great for the Rams in real life. Now, fantasy-wise, I just muddy the waters a little bit, but Cam Akers is still going to be the guy you want here. He's going to get the bulk of the touches. He's definitely the best running back talent-wise. He can be used in the passing game. The Bengals' run defense isn't that great. They are a bottom team when it comes to fantasy points allowed per game to the running back position, despite them being a top half team DVOA-wise versus the run. But exactly how these guys are priced or the order I would want in terms of my roster percentage on these guys. And heading back over to our lineup, the only thing I'm going to do here after we talk about running back is just plug in Cam Akers. I think he's too cheap. He's going to get the bulk of the work. He's on the home favorite team. I say home. I mean, they're playing at home. They're just not listed as the home team in the Super Bowl, but I think you guys get the idea there. So plug in at $6,400, we'll move on from there. And moving on to the wide receiver position, this is definitely where it gets fun because there is a load of great options. And it's actually kind of easy to break down even though there's a lot of options because both these teams use 3 wide receivers the majority of the time here. So starting with the Rams, we have Cooper Kupp, $11,600, who I'm kind of surprised is not over $12,000. So I do actually think we're getting a decent price, as crazy as that sounds at that price point. You also have Odell Beckham Jr., $8,400, who past 2 weeks has actually been very solid in the playoffs. 11 and 8 targets, had over 100 yards last week. Definitely think he's a fine option. Probably more of a tournament guy, $8,400, but an option nonetheless. And you have Van Jefferson at $5,200. Now, Ben Skarnak does get some work. He did get around a quarter of the snaps last week, but the targets, if any, will be very minimal, but only $600. I could see him being a halfway decent pump play, maybe playing around 5 to 10% of your lineups on Sunday. And as for the Bengals, we have Jamar Chase at $10,400, T. Higgins at $7,600, and Tyler Boyd at $5,400. Now, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those are the guys with big play upside. Tyler Boyd, not really so much, more of a possession slot guy, but that's still fine at $5,400. I'm not against that. If we're looking at their target distribution so far this season, Jamar Chase coming in at 7 targets per game, T. Higgins at 7.5, and Tyler Boyd just over 5.5. So all these guys are going to get some usage. We know the Bengals are not afraid to the ball the majority of the game. Again, they're pretty much priced exactly how you want them, so it just really comes down to the roster construction. And outside of the 3 for Cincinnati, Boyd, Higgins, and Jamar Chase, there is really no chance I'd be rostering any of them. We're talking like Mike Thomas getting half a target per game. Trent Taylor is an option, but I mean, you cannot really trust these guys whatsoever. And to be honest, it also comes down to what stacks you're rolling with. Like if you have Matthew Stafford in a captain spot, get some of his pass catching options in there. It doesn't make sense to put Stafford in the captain spot when he doesn't really use his legs too much and have a bunch of Bengals wide receivers, and same can be said for Joe Burrows in your captain spot. Moving back to our lineup, there's a lot of wide receivers I could easily plug in here and call it a day, but we still have tight ends, defenses, and kickers to talk about. So the only thing I'm going to do here is pair up Matthew Stafford with his boy, Cooper Kupp. If you're playing Stafford, you probably want to get Cooper Kupp in your lap, especially if you're playing cash games and tournaments. Yes, there's leverage to be had, but fading Cooper Kupp usually does not work out that well. It really hasn't whatsoever so far this season. Yeah, you can catch him on a down week, 17 points versus Arizona in the first round of the playoffs, but those down weeks are few and far between. 35 points week 20 versus Tampa in the divisional round last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, versus San Francisco. 14 targets, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, 40 DraftKings points. He's not that expensive for where he should be, to be honest. I think Cooper Kupp should probably be around $20,000 in the captain spot, but I think the pricing goes overall pretty soft here, and it makes sense. A lot of casual players for the Super Bowl, you want to be able to fit in the lineups that you want. So Kupp, just going to jam him in the captain spot. Is he the only captain you can play? No, there's definitely other guys that you can get to, but in an optimal build, a guy that's projected much higher than everybody else, Kupp is the guy that's being jammed in with optimizers right now, including my own. As far as the tight ends go in this game, it is really brutal because Tyler Higbee got placed in the IR. CJ Uzomah is coming off an injury. He is still questionable to play, looking like a game-time decision, so that definitely doesn't make you feel too confident in what he's going to do on the field, even if he is able to play. Assuming he does play, though, it's the Super Bowl. He's got all offseason to recover. Have to assume that he would be somewhat safe to play on DraftKings this weekend. But looking at the Rams here with no Tyler Higbee, that means Kendall Blanton will step in a starting role. You also have Bryson Hopkins to back him up at only $200, although we know Blanton in the past has been serviceable, and even last time he played, he had 5 targets, caught all 5 of them, had actually a somewhat decent day. If he scores a touchdown, he'll be fine. But at $4,600, probably the only way you're gonna be happy playing Blanton nearly $5,000 is gonna be if he gets into the end zone or just has an absurdly big yardage gain. That would be something very hard to project. And as for the Bengals, if Uzomah misses, Drew Sample at $4,200, but they did price up these backup tight ends, so it's not like we're really getting any value here anyway. And moving on to the defenses, I'm not super interested in either. I wouldn't mind being underweight to the field. If you really want to push it, I don't mind just being even, but I can't see myself really captaining either of these defenses. If I had to pick between the two, if you want to play defense, it's going to be the Rams for me. Remember, the Cam Akers would be decent correlation play, but overall, not super interested here. But the Rams are definitely more favorable, in my opinion, to make my lineups than they would be the Bengals. And as far as the kickers go, we are playing in a dome, so you don't have to worry about any outside weather affecting kicks or anything. So I don't mind the kickers. I wouldn't even mind playing two kickers in the same lineup if you're playing cash, just looking for a pretty high floor. In tournaments, these guys do have lower ceilings than compared to guys priced in their price points because they can't score touchdowns, they can't throw the ball, they can only kick the ball given field goal opportunities. But McPherson, he has been straight money so far in the playoffs, and I could see the Bengals moving the ball, but maybe drive stall out because the Rams defense when they're in field goal range. So I think McPherson's a great play. Matt Gay's a fine play. Really hard to project kickers, but I both have them projected around the mid-8s, which is fine given their price points. And then just to finish out this lineup, again, don't copy and paste this, building on the fly just to see what fits as we talk through it. But I am going to plug in the Bengals kicker. Now, we might end up going double kicker, but I think that would be fine just given that I think the way this game could potentially go. $4,000. We're going to plug him in. I want one of these Bengals wide receivers because not having at least one of them is pretty terrifying. I don't think we can afford Jamar Chase. If I tried to plug in Jamar Chase, we're left with $1,000. Yes, if you wanted to go with a guy like Skowronek, you can make that work. I guess you could even plug in Joe Burrow and still get Skowronek in if you wanted to go double quarterback. But that's just not the build I'm going for. If I want to try to save a little bit of money, T. Higgins here at $7,600, I think that would be just fine. Jamar Chase was pretty busy with Jalen Ramsey anyway. Not saying I don't like Jamar Chase because of that. I'm just saying definitely does hurt him a little bit in terms of just having some soft coverage. And then if you go that route, it does give you Matt Gay. You also have the Rams defense, Bengals, Samaje Perine. So I'll let you guys use your imagination to fill out the rest there. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and I hope you guys enjoyed the football season if you were here the entire time. Looking forward to getting right back into NASCAR. Again, like I said, I'll be doing my own live streams, own videos, and also be on the Osmo channel breaking it down. I'm looking forward to the baseball season, which I'll be doing the same exact thing over on Osmo. And over here, just got to hope the owners and the players can get something resolved so we actually have a season. I wish you all the best of luck. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Have fun with your friends. Get some good food. And enjoy the game.